Yeah, this is the other part. They had a demand for a hearing. Judge Harry Gill.
Demand for hearing? What is that?
But they were going to call you in front of a judge. Yeah.
That she was in possession of a needle syringe.
Yeah, that you
that
gave
had
her back.
or was used to administer heroin.
Yeah.
The nightmare no parent ever wants to face. Lori Zilkowski has lived it, watching her own daughter addicted to heroin.
We knew she was struggling with something. We didn't know what. She just wasn't happy anymore. She wasn't happy with the things that always made her happy. And so we sought help for her, and that was senior year, and then it just went from bad to worse.
I remember being anxious before I would go to school, before my volleyball tournaments, if I had to do homework, really about anything, and I began to self-medicate. The first time I used, I was probably 15, just started drinking and smoking weed recreationally on the weekends if there was a party. And then I started doing other drugs like cocaine and MDMA and LSD. And it just made me feel better, you know? It made me feel outside of myself. It made me feel different, and I really liked the feeling of feeling different.
We noticed some changes in her kind of about summer of junior year, and we just thought it was normal teenage stuff.
I remember the first time I snorted heroin. I was about to do it, and I got nervous, and the person I was with said it was just heroin. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. It's just a stronger painkiller. You know, I was doing everything else. Might as well do that too. Initially, it was, like I said, it was just fun to do. It kind of put me in a different place. It got my mind off things. I didn't have to worry about anything. I wasn't anxious anymore. I wasn't depressed as much because I couldn't feel anything. You know, the heroin numbed that out.
And then she started kind of declining in her self-care. She wouldn't take showers for 3, 4, 5 days. She wouldn't put on makeup anymore. She wasn't washing her clothes. Her room got messy. And as a mom, she's our only child, we just thought, wow, you know, the teenager years, yeah, they really change. And so we didn't know.
The first time I really realized it was a problem is when I tried to stop using so I could go see someone in treatment, and I had to pass a drug test. And so I quit using for 2 days, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I decided to pick up again, and I didn't even consider that my tolerance has gone down. So I did as much as I was used to doing, maybe a little bit less. And I don't even remember overdosing. It's just kind of like I fell asleep or nodded out is what they call it.
I remember I was driving down Mackinac Road, and my mom called and said, I can't wake Amanda up. Papa can't wake Amanda up. The ambulance is coming, and there's a needle in the room. And I just remember not understanding what was happening.
I woke up to my grandma and my papa in the room, kind of freaking out. And I told them, like, I don't know what's going on, like, I'm fine, don't worry about it. And the EMTs were already there, so they kind of knew what was going on, but they never would have expected it out of me. It's my little therapy chinchilla. After that overdose, I went into the psychiatric unit in Bay City and was admitted there, but it was never specifically for drug use. When I was there, they put me on Suboxone and a bunch of other psychiatric drugs, and then just sent me on my way. They actually sent me home with the syringe that I overdosed with on accident. And then they tried to cover it up, and I was in Lansing at the time, so they had police come and drug test me because they thought that I was using again. Because they gave me the syringe, yeah. And my mom called them freaking out.
I don't know if your drug test would have been positive. I don't know what would have happened.
It was nice.
I know, but what if it would have been? What would they have done?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know where.
Yeah, they took me in the back of a cop car.
I know.
To the closest psych ward in Lansing.
Yeah, crazy. We ended up paying for that.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that drug test. Yeah.
Right. So I would
I know.
go to like right back.
The other thing, when she went in, so when the ambulance picked her up and then they took her to the emergency room and then they admitted her into mental health, she still had on all of her street clothes. She had heroin in her pocket. Didn't check for that. Yeah. I didn't know that till a long while later. I said, what'd you do with it? She said, I flushed it down the toilet. And so the people who were supposed to know what they were doing and helping us didn't.
It was my turn while you're calling labor.
We gotta get some more pictures.
You also a teacher.
She used to love sitting in laundry baskets. Anytime there's a laundry basket or a bowl, and she used to love, Kevin still has those boots. She used to love putting those gigantic boots on. I don't know why.
When she came home from the hospital, she had a friend who went to Michigan State and he had a roommate bail. And she asked if she could move to Lansing. And we thought that was a good idea at the time.
I was completely isolated from my family. I lived with the person I was in a relationship with and one of our friends. And at that point in time, I had been using heroin every single day for the past 6 months, a year maybe.
She called in the middle of the night. It was a snowstorm, and she said, I owe a drug dealer money. He said he's going to do what he's got to do, and I don't know what that means. And so my husband and I sat up in the middle of the night and had this surreal conversation. What do you do? Okay, do you call the cops? Well, you can't call the cops because she could be in trouble. And so I did go get money out of the ATM, and I took it down there, and I picked her up.
When I had my mom pick me up, it's because I started shooting up cocaine, and I didn't have any heroin left, and I was just ready to get out of it.
We got her home, and shortly thereafter she started going through withdrawals. And so we took her to Brighton Center for Rehab and dropped her off there. And so she was able to stay there for 12, 13 days, and we knew she couldn't come back home. She couldn't go to Lansing. We didn't want her back at our house because that wouldn't have been good either.
I could have either moved back to Lansing where I was using heavily or moved back in with my parents. And when I was in treatment, I met a friend and he's like, I'm moving to this recovery house in Grand Rapids.
And, you know, I always envisioned like taking your kid to college and how hard that would be. And you always hear parents, you know, crying, leaving their kids at college. And here we are leaving her at a 3-quarter house. And that was tough. Wasn't in a great neighborhood, wasn't a pretty house. It was with a bunch of strangers, and that was tough.
I moved to Grand Rapids, lived in a 3-quarter house for a while, and I got a year clean, and then I relapsed again.
And she went right back into Brighton and stayed again, went back down to Grand Rapids, and then she was in recovery for 13 months, had a relapse, right back to Brighton, and back to Grand Rapids, and now today I think is the 24th. It is. She's 21 months in recovery now. And so there is no magic bullet. There isn't.
I currently work at a 90-day women's inpatient drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. It's called Our Hope. I'm a resident support specialist. People in early recovery, like, they see everything as a new, beautiful thing that they get to experience, and sometimes I forget that. I used to hate my mom completely. We would fight every single day. Every time I saw her, we would fight over really dumb, trivial things. But through that, you know, she's become my best friend. I never thought that I would say that. If I were to tell 15-year-old me my mom would be my best friend, I would think that she's a liar. And if anything happens, I call my mom. If I'm happy, I call my mom. When I get depressed, I call my mom. If I have troubles in my relationship, I call my mom. And I think that's another reason why I had to go through this and why we had to go through this, is that so we could have the relationship that we have today.